This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by AuthorU and the Book Shepherd. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, welcome to another edition of AuthorU, your guide to book publishing. And it's where, we try to give you a variety of strategies, tips, techniques, you name it, for you to be more successful as an author, to build your publishing empire, and really enhance the influence factor so people know who and what you and your books are apart. So today, it's been a while since I've done any real close, hands-on focusing on this thing called PR, promotion. It's not just book marketing. It's really the setting the stage. And I know just this last week, I was just so honored to get my 9th book award for my book, When God Says No, Revealing the Yes When Adversity and Loss Are Present. And it was, identified as a reader's favorite. So that was very exciting for me. So what am I going to do? The first thing we're going to do is write a press release. And when I'm done with that, besides sending it out, I'm going to turn it into another story because we have a local weekly, and I know we're going to talk about them with our guest today, a weekly that likes to publish stuff. They always want to know what's new in my arena. So this will be a new thing. And then the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure we get it posted up on my website in the media page. So with that said, we have a real pro. We've had her here before talking about other things, Jules Marie, and that what we're going to do is do a deep dive because she has these two hats she wears. One is she's an ace in social media strategy and positioning, and we'll talk about how to use your press releases in your media blasts for your social media, but also she really does develop a strategy for press releases and PR, etc., for her clients. So with that, I just kind of want to, that's the setup. Jules is with us right now, and that I want to jump right into what we're doing. And then we'll certainly talk about her website so you can find out about her. But she is one of the go-to people that I recommend and take advantage of. And she is what we would call in the industry a wordsmith. She is so amazing with putting together snappy, sassy, maybe salty words. Her website is 33 words, and that's plural.us. Jules, welcome back.
Thank you, Judith. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really tickled you're back again. So let's do some deep diving into this. And there's always the who, what, where, and why when it comes to this. But what's the real purpose of a press release?
Well, if you don't tell the media your story, nobody will. So that press release is your story about what's going on, what's new in your world, what events are coming up, what product did you create, what award did you win, what's new and unusual with your business. So the press release, the idea behind a press release is to encapsulate something amazing that's happened in your company.
Oh, I love that, as encapsulating something amazing. I think that's very cool. So we're talking about shouting out. This is shout out time, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Because, people say, well, how do I get on the news? How do I get on TV? How do I get somebody to report about me? Well, that's up to you. And the reason we use another really good reason for using press releases is they don't cost you any money. not necessarily, because you can manage your press release writing and distribution on your own. It isn't necessary to hire a publicist unless you just don't really have any writing skills, you don't understand how a press release should be written, and you're not clear on how to distribute it. That's what a publicist would do for you. But as an author, you definitely can write your own press release and send it to the media, but there are some caveats that you have to follow really in order to get them to notice you. So we'll talk about that a little as well today.
Oh, I think that's really important to do that number one, you can do it. And I think that when authors, there's a resistance. Maybe we can get into the mental resistance they have in doing this thing, called a press release. But the reality is, you all are writers. Yes, you can put together some words that snap, crackle, and pop that will identify this amazing feature about you. I am hoping so. That's really important.
But I have to say, some of the authors I work with, the reason they don't do this is because here's what I usually hear. I don't know how to promote myself. I know how to write a book, but I don't know what to say about me. I'm not comfortable tooting my own horn. I'm not comfortable being in front of a camera or the limelight. I don't want it to shine on me. But if you want to sell your book, get reviews for your book, have people want to interview you in their publication, you have to promote yourself, because it's really true. If you don't, somebody else isn't going to. This is on you. You control your story. You manage your reputation by sending out a press release. You're giving the media information about you, right? Maybe you're, let's just say you've sent in a press release and maybe they don't pick it up, but maybe they file it because they feel like you're an expert on this topic, and they may come back to you when they have a story in mind that you would fit into. So though you may not be perfect for them right now, you might be perfect for them down the road when they have another story coming up that you would fit into. That's why we want you to, I always suggest you send a press release every single quarter. That's 4 times a year minimum.
And I try to get them, Jules, to do it monthly. So
yes.
I'm trying to. But 4 times a year, people, you can do this. You can do this on it.
Right.
All right. So how do you make it stand out? I know you have a lot of tips in making your event stand out. So what do you do, for example, that maybe more mundane? Any tips on how to make it newsworthy? Was it a tweak or a twist?
Well, I have a lot of tips always. And the challenge here is that, okay, so we're talking about an author. There are so many books published all the time. And so editors are continually receiving press releases about books, right? So, and not just about books, about everything. Okay, so you're not just competing with a press release about other books. You're competing with a lot of information that's being sent to an editor. So you've got to stand out from everything that they're receiving so that they pull your press release and they read it and they're, wow, this is perfect for our readers. Our readers really are going to want to know about this. We want to share this information with them. So now this editor has your press release in his or her hands, and now they assign a reporter to contact you and do a full story, not just about your book, maybe about your process, how you got started writing the book, what influenced you. So now that reporter is going to do a deeper dive into where or how that story originated. So that's the goal for a press release, is to get the editor to assign a reporter to do a full story, a more comprehensive study on how that book of yours came to be. So that's the goal of the press release. So to make it newsworthy, what are you going to do? What if you're a poet? How do you make a book of poetry stand out? Judith, what's your first thought? If you were going to help somebody promote a book on poetry, what would you suggest first?
Well, I'm going to give you an example. I had an author who wrote children's books in a rhymey style. And it's a poetry. One of the things I love about poetry is there's no rules. You can do so many different things. So part of it is as you read this, going through it, it kind of smacks a little of Dr. Seuss. So when we did the pitching out, it was really that we likened it to Dr. Seuss. In fact, we even put an example of a couple of lyrics within from social media to the press release that would be catchy, and we include one of the graphics, and she got hits off of that. That was one thing we did. I mean, poetry is so different, but her book just pops into my mind. Another one, which is has poetry, is all about compassion. And compassion during COVID times, compassion is a hugely hot word. So I would be probably trying to hook into that.
Right. And that right there, that's a great answer, because what we want to do is liken our book, because we may not be familiar, we maybe have never been published, we haven't won any awards. So what we want to do is liken our book to something that is familiar. So that's exactly what you did. You likened her book to Dr. Seuss, because who isn't familiar with Dr. Seuss, right? So it might be, I'm working with a poet who's just published a book, and she has a lot of relevant and current. Her poetry has relevancy. She's writing about current events. There might be something in there about immigration. There, whatever's tied into our political times right now, probably 20 to 30% of the poetry in the book is about this current political climate and COVID that we're in. So it's very relevant to the times. So if I were to write a press release for her, some of the focus would be on that these words are relevant to what we're all facing right now, which means we can all identify with that. And then I would also say her poetry is in a similar...
Jules, sorry about that. We'll be right back.
Okay.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Is there a book in you or another? AuthorU shows you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you will find a supportive and brainstorming community that is connected and creative, no matter where you live. AuthorU brings in national experts for its book camps and annual AuthorU extravaganza. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through AuthorU's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. AuthorU is the premier authoring resource in the country, creating community, education, guidance, vision, and success for the serious author. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, AuthorU is for you. Timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted on its social media platforms, and it is free. Discover AuthorU, where authors go to become seriously successful. Join AuthorU today at AuthorU.org.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, Well, we ran over. That was my bad, everybody. And with us is Jules Marie. She's the visionary and CEO behind 33 Words, WORDS.US. And her DNA is all about social media and publicity. So we're talking about press releases and why it's essential. And we had started on the kind of the vision. What was kind of the goal here, which was Jules said, oh, we want to get the editor to be so jazzed by what they see in your visionary, stunning, amazing press release that they sign it to one of their editors to feature you. All right, that's the cat's meow, but sometimes there's variables here. So Jules was talking about some of the things to tap dance with that editor. You want to continue there, Jules?
Yes, absolutely. So, again, because you're competing with so much information that's coming across an editor's desk, some of the ways that you can stand out, here's another one that's really important. It's to do your homework. That publication that you're sending your press release to, they want to know that you know about them. So if you've written a book about, you have a nonfiction book, you want to send it to editors that their fan base, their reader base are people who want to read a nonfiction book. Maybe it's a memoir, maybe it's an autobiography. Well, if you're going to pitch it to an editor, it has to be something that their readers are going to be interested in. So sometimes I say that. I say, your readers will love hearing about such and such and such, which I'm looking at their publication. I know that this is going to be a good fit. That's the goal, is understanding who you're sending it to. You can send your press release to 1 million people, but if you target it to specific publications, you're more likely to get that PR picked up and have a full story written about you. So doing your homework about the publication is very important.
Mm-hmm. Here's an idea. It was very successful for me with some of the books I wrote for the healthcare field, is that I think we haven't even mentioned the who word here. We've mentioned target, but you need to know who you are really writing for, who's your message for. So where do those who people hang out? What associations do they belong to? Do you know that most associations, especially the big boys, the national associations, they all have online internal magazines, really hefty newsletters for their memberships that routinely go out at least quarterly, most likely monthly. A lot of them are in print format. Do a search. This is where the Google comes in, but do a search for associations within your target market. And then go to the websites and then see if there is a newsletter or a magazine. And then click. Who's the editor of it? That's exactly what Jules is talking about. Who do you send this baby to? And it's usually all on the masthead of it. It's so exciting. It's free. It's there. You just have to do the work.
Mm-hmm. And another thought on that is, okay, so I'm in Colorado, and if I feel like I've got a story that's ideal for like a certain reporter, I'm going to send it right to him. Or maybe I'm going to tag him on Twitter, or I'm going to send it as an email, not as a newsletter file, but I'm going to send it directly to somebody and say, your viewers would love hearing about this such and such and such, right? Because getting on TV, that's a coup. If you can get a announcer to talk about you, your product, your service, whatever it is, that's even better than getting in a magazine. So if you go on, for instance, Channel 9, and you know, again, like Judith just said, click. There is a press page. There's a press page they have that will give you information about all of their reporters. And usually what I find is I can click their name, and it's most likely going to take me to a Twitter profile. Twitter is very popular among TV, radio, all media. Any media focuses on Twitter. That's where your news is going to show up. Remember, it started and it still is like a micro news blogging platform. That's where anything and everything to do with news shows up. So if I want to reach a reporter, that's how I'm going to reach them, is right there through the Channel 9 or Channel 7 or whatever you're looking for. The contact information is always on the website. So you should always be able to send your press release to someone's name, not to info@Channel 9 or info@ the Denver Post. You want to send it to a person. Very important.
That is really important. I mean, I've got little ideas floating around with just my latest book award, what I can play with here. But with what Jules just said, that it is like a micro news blog. One of the things I'd recommend to all of you, if you have not done it, you could do local. So I would start with your local, do within your state. You should be going in and finding the Twitter handles of reporters, of major publications and all that, so that you can just kind of become your own little churning press release person. This is what the distribution is, that you can get out there, and you should be on Twitter. If you want publicity, everyone, you better be on Twitter. That's my advice.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And here's the proof is in the pudding, right? So when you read something, you go and you read news in the morning, they're quoting Twitter. The reporters quoting Twitter. They're not quoting Pinterest or Facebook or LinkedIn. They're quoting Twitter. And that's where you want your news to show up. That's one of the places you want your news to show up. But let's go back to a couple of other thoughts about how to stand out. So another really important tip is that you don't want to make your press release only about your book, okay? That is too promotional, okay? You want to make it, you want to fit your book into whatever the current programming is. So what in your book appeals to what's happening today in this country? And how is what you've written, how could it be maybe a special interest piece? So it's not just, hey, there's this great book that I wrote, but this is what it ties into today. So, for instance, if you're a fiction author, think of your book and how does it tie into ongoing issues today? How does your storyline fit into what is happening today? Okay, or if you wrote your book 2 years ago and you're just trying to now push it out again, that's okay. How is what's happening today part of what's in your book? How can you tie the two together? Because that's what's going to get an editor to want to know more about you. It's got to be relevant and it has to be current. Very important.
I just love that you just said it doesn't matter if it's 2 years old. They're not looking often for right now it was published today. It's the relevancy that you may have had a book you wrote 5 years ago that should tie into the chaos, the turbulence, or violence, or confusion, or maybe it has an election cycle, or fill in the blank. You could tap into that so easily. That's a great way to newsjack stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word. Another thought is when you published your books, you had to find endorsements, right? You had to go out and get people to write a review, a testimonial. We call them endorsements in the book, right? So when you write your press release, that's an awesome thing to include in there. What did somebody have to say about your book? That's what we call social proof. So you don't want your press release to just be a blah, blah, blah. You want it to include these juicy little tidbits about other people who are lifting your book up. You can include quotes from your book, a powerful few sentences or a paragraph, or if you're a poet, a few lines from your poem. So you want to make it so that it's not just black and white words on the paper, but you've got an image of your book cover, an image of the back. You want to have quotes from someone, endorsements. You want to have little snippets that are coming straight out of your book because you want to tantalize the editor. You want them to want more. So you've got to kind of feed them a little bit as a way to encourage them to get more from you and assign a reporter to your story. Mm-hmm.
And I hear Jules and I are both based in Colorado. We have in the Denver area is the Denver Post is the main one out of Denver anyway, but there's certainly other papers around town. The Denver Post also has something called Your Hub. which is an online, their online variation, and they always have an insert on Thursdays, some paper. We did something on one of my books one time, and they literally printed the whole thing verbatim. What we wrote. It must have been a slow day, Jules. Anyway, so, wow. I mean, you never know. The thing is, you never know what's going to hit. I think that's what's important to understand. You never know. But you're never going to know unless you stick your neck out and do it. Do something.
And that's the reason why you want to continue to send press releases. Just because they didn't pick it up this month doesn't mean they won't next month. And earlier I said 4 times a year, and Judith said she does them every month. I say 4 times a year as a minimum, because most people don't send them once a year. So if you tell them to send it every month, they're going to be like, but I've never sent one before. So I try to at least get them to focus on what happened this quarter that's newsworthy, right? Because even though, you want to send something every quarter, every single press release isn't just going to be about your book. What's happening right now, this quarter, that ties into your book? What's happening around the holidays that ties into your book, so you can increase those holiday sales, right? So every time you write a press release, that opening line, that hook, has to be different. It just can't be the same every single month, or you won't get noticed, because you're just recycling your news. We want fresh, current, relevant news every single time in a press release.
I think your magic word is fresh. And I love tying up the holidays. And actually, here we are. We're still in summer here. But fall is fast approaching, which is the biggest book selling time. So you've got, you've got October, you've got spookiness, you've got all kinds of stuff that you could play with. You've got the gratefulness of the Thanksgiving season. And I think a lot of people can hardly be grateful enough to get to next year at this point. But but there's a lot of things. I have one quick question. We're going to take another quick break in about 45 seconds. But what about quoting yourself in your press release? How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't necessarily quote myself, but as an author, I would include snippets from the book. That is right. Like quoting myself. That's something that I've written. I want to definitely include something in there.
Mm-hmm. So I love that idea of the snippets. And what I would even do, and I don't know about formatting the protocol here, but it would be appropriate to kind of do it a little setup or drop it down and indent it a little bit so it pops out, or you just want quotes around it. All right. So pop it out, everyone. All right. So we're going to take another quick break. With us is Jules Marie, and we're talking about how to get you out there so the press pays attention.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Discover the power of you and your book at the Judith Briles Unplugged events. Each summer, Judith Briles Book Marketing Unplugged unfolds over 3 intensive days working with just Judith. You get publishing strategies, author and book platforms, book marketing panache and pizzazz, and authoring tools to take you and your book to rock star success. In the fall and winter, Judith Briles Speaking Unplugged includes Judith as your coach and mentor during 2 powerful days. You will learn how to structure a speech, how to create openings and closings, how to find gigs that pay you and sell your books, and you will get one-on-one coaching. Go to thebookshepherd.com and click on the Events tab to learn how to participate at the next Unplugged Workshop event.
Congratulations on getting your book published. The effort you put into your work is truly commendable. But what's next? What will happen to all the knowledge you have worked so hard to acquire to produce your book? Here at TogiNet Radio, we can provide you a platform to keep your knowledge working for you through the power of podcast. The subjects our podcasts cover are as varied as the grains of sand on a beach. From life coaching to military resources to business success, even to the paranormal. We have a place for everyone. To get started on your next step, call Scott at 903-787-5880 or email him at scott@toginetradio.com. That's SCOTT at TOGINETRADIO.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Alrighty, so we are deep in the heart of getting you out there. So into the attention. So editors discover you, so reporters discover you, so your book gets some more of the attention that I know that you would do tap dance, and love. I remember, Jules, one time I was featured in People magazine, actually a couple of times, but the first time there was 4 pages, it was big, and it was on one of my books. And one of the things I learned from them is that they told me rarely do they take, unless they're doing some big star celebrity type of thing, and they have first rights, like a serial rights, that they really want to see you out already building buzz on you. They want to see other people talking about you to show that, you know, you're not a one book pony, so to speak, that there's really some substance behind you. So that was a big aha for me, because I always thought, oh, they'd like these people all want to be the first to break the news, which is kind of like a Good Morning America or Today or the CBS show, that they want to be first. And a lot of times, if you book one, you're not going to get on the others. It's just kind of crazy. But that's been my experience anyway out there. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I've never gotten anybody in People magazine, so I don't know how that works. But I do know generally if somebody picks your story up, it may not be picked up by someone else. And so in this case, that's what I would call a reach. So a lot of times you're going to send your press release out to places you're more familiar with, but you have to have a reach, and People would be, as would Vogue magazine or Good Housekeeping or Redbook or any of those massively large publications. Those are a reach. There's every reason why you should include some of those when you're sending out your press release, because there's a very good possibility they've got somebody who writes book reviews on their staff. Maybe you won't get a full story out of your press release. Maybe you won't get 4 pages like Judith did, but maybe you'll get something in the book review section, and now you've got thousands of people reading Vogue who just saw this book that you wrote listed in the book review section. That's credibility.
It could be huge.
In a massive, it could be life-changing. Remember when Oprah did all the book reviews and Reese Witherspoon does book reviews? I mean, those, to get into something like that is very hard, but it's a reach. You definitely want to reach for some of these very large goals.
And also, let me add on this, whether it's the Reese's Club or Oprah's Club or any of these, there's others out there. I mean, your local bookstore has clubs, for heaven's sakes, that if you're going to do the reach, you can't get at them unless you do the reach, but you better look at the kind of books that they review and they feature on that, because your book may not be a fit for them. So understand that. Don't waste your time, but there's someone out there who does that. And I'll just do the other ad that I pitched myself to people, and it was just at the right time, the right place. It was the first real book on the topic of toxic workplaces and how women undermine other women. You know, so I was a pioneer in it, but it was just, you know, I don't want to say the luck of the draw, the roll of the dice or whatever, but I was persistent. And I got the attention. You go back to the editor, just what Jules Marie has been saying. If you can get the attention of the editor, it gets assigned and you're off and running. Makes a huge difference.
Right. 4 pages is pretty amazing, Judith. I'm happy when I get a quarter or a half page, you know?
Yeah, it was books. Suzanne Sumner's was on the front cover, but the title, My Topic, was also a cover story. I mean, it was huge. It was huge.
That's awesome.
And I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, so you're finally an overnight success, Judith." Oh my God, I've been at this stuff for a long time. You know, it's just overnight successes. Yeah. Oh, wouldn't it be lovely to be discovered at the soda fountain bar? It doesn't usually happen that way, people. It's persistence. No. It's persistence. All right.
Yeah, so it's persistence and determination. You've got to be determined to get that press, right? I want to go back to something Judith said about the Denver Post having the Your Hub. Almost every newspaper right here, I live near Boulder, and our local publication has something called a 15-second pitch. You can take the very best of your press release and pop it into a paragraph and post it right in the newspaper's online section. So almost every newspaper, and definitely these TV stations, they've got ways that you can upload your press release, your information right to them real time. So it's worth doing the research to find some of these places where it's easier to get noticed, right? Maybe there's a reporter that you love in your town. Send them your information, invite them out to your shop. Make it a personal appeal, because, you know, where people you might not be able to get personal with them. Maybe you can with, for instance, I'm going to use a reporter in Denver, Greg Moss. Greg Moss loves coming out to places and seeing what's happening, whether it's a chocolate factory or a high-tech firm that just started business. So there are reporters who are hungry for these stories. So definitely find them.
And the other thing is, if you're reading papers and doing things or make comments, again, all these reporters have Twitter handles. You could post something in your Twitter feed and send them kisses, send them a compliment, start getting into their radar that you're out here. You're not asking for anything, just support them also. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely follow their news, like them, comment on them, because you'll see more of their posts and they'll see more of your posts. So I've had that happen on Twitter, where I wrote about a client. He published a book on hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park, and a reporter contacted me via Twitter, and he wound up getting featured in a major publication as a result of my writing about him on Twitter. You just never know. So you got to try everything.
Yeah, and you're right. It's that, I think maybe that's our byline, you never know, doing that. Jules, I have some questions about websites. What should be like, you know, those of us who cook, we have pantries and we have staples that are always in there. What should be a staple for an author on a website for someone in the media that might have a little interest in them?
Definitely a video. Definitely you reading something from your book. Yeah, they want to see you, and they want to know what that book is about. So either a video of you reading, that to me is one of the most powerful things you can have on an author website. I get to know you. I get to hear something from your book. So that's very important. The other very important piece is to have a news section where all those press releases you're writing, you put your press releases in your news section, and if somebody picks up a story about you and you get written about or you're interviewed on the radio, you want to have that interview link right there on your website. You're adding credibility by having these links to what it is that you've been doing, to your own press releases or to any coverage that you've gotten. So that's very important. The other piece for your website is please, I'm begging you, put your social media icons on your website. Make it easy for me to find you. If you use LinkedIn, put it there. If you use Facebook, put the Facebook icon. I want to be able to click and find you easily. Once you send out a press release, that reporter, before anybody contacts you, they're going to go right to your website to check you out. So if you've just got a one-page website with no information on it, you may not look relevant because you haven't put the time into creating that social platform, that profile, that author profile, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to have those social icons out there. I want to know everything current about you. I'd like to see a link to blogs that you've written. I'm surprised. A lot of authors I work with don't have a blog. They say, I wrote my book. I don't want to write a blog. I wrote a book. And I'm like, okay. You can still have a blog. A blog is relevant. And when you write that blog about maybe a process that you struggled through, maybe you were trying to identify a character and you wrote about this in a blog, that's juicy. People want to know what your process is. They want to know how you got this character from this spot to this spot. So write about that. Tell them about the process. People who are coming to your site, if you've got them there, now you need to start feeding them information. It's very important to have those social icons, a press tab, and a video. Not just a photo of your book cover and a photo of your face. And if it is your face, please make it a professional headshot, not a selfie. But the movement is important, and that's why I always suggest authors do a reading and they have a video on their website. I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do on a website.
You know, one of the things that I discovered when I was doing a lot of my own pitching for things, for publicity and press, and I don't know if you have a magic trick, but I find it very difficult to get to a live producer for main TV and things like that. But it was so much easier if I wanted to get a hold of it because I had business booked to CNN or CNBC where I would want to get to the business side. I could really get into them and ask for that person, and bang, I was there. It is not so easy today unless you have a trick that I don't know about. But I did find that one of the, if I could get a hold of one of those people and engage them, and, that really short 10-second engagement where they're saying, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? Tell me a little bit more. That they have the opportunity to hear your flexibility and how you respond. They can hear the way your voice uses and tone. It helps hugely, especially in radio, for sure. And I can remember nailing down, I did like 3 months on CNBC just by doing that during one time frame. So there's a lot to do. So what Jules is saying, they need to see you in action. They need to see you in action. And maybe you're not on a news show. Once you get a clip, you want it. But they need to see you in action. Can you interact? Do you respond like in a deposition? Yes. No, that's a kiss of death. All right, we're going to be right back with Jules Marie in our final segment. Her website is 33words.us.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these.
Are you confused about publishing options? Do you know which printing option is best for your book? Does your stomach flip when you think about selling books? Or do you feel overwhelmed with what to do about book marketing and publicity? Get the answers and much more. Get them and from someone who knows publishing inside and out from both the traditional and independent sides how to make a successful book. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand and platform, and is a success, a bestseller. It is your choice. You choose. If you want author and publishing success, You want Judith Briles as your book coach. Sign up for her weekly blogs and e-zine at thebookshepherd.com. The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and guide to collaborate with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You do not need more problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and chaos. At times, she has had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher, by a publishing service provider, and sometimes even by the author. If you want author and book success, connect with her today at thebookshepherd.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, I hope we've convinced you that there should be a press release in your midst, and you're going to start sprinkling them out here on an ongoing basis. So remember, they're going to be newsworthy. They're going to tie in with things that are going on. You're going to do them with a little flash. All right. So Jules, we've done all that. How do we distribute these babies?
Well, that's the second part. So now you've written the press release, you're looking at it, it's perfect, it says everything you want it to, and now you're wondering what you're supposed to do with it. So there are many ways to share your press release other than just sending it to the media. The most important thing to do is to send it to the media, okay? Get it out there. So that's the first thing you're going to do. The second thing you're going to do is email it. Right there from your email program, email it to some of your personal contacts. Just send it along with a PDF of your book cover and a photo of you and your press release. And there is a very nice press packet that you're sending via email. You can also distribute it through your newsletter program. So hopefully you have a newsletter sign up on your website and you have built your own following. I like using newsletters because I own those names. Like Facebook can shut my site down, but nobody can shut down my newsletter program. I've gathered those names. Those are people who've opted into my newsletter who want to hear from me. So I open up my constant contact and I create my newsletter with the press release in there. And I send it to everybody on my contact list. This is not sending it to the media. This is sending it strictly to your newsletter contacts. Who's in your email file is usually different. I have a whole host of people in email that are not subscribed to my newsletter. You definitely want to do both. And by now you've heard us talk about your social media platforms. You want to post it everywhere, and not just once. You can post snippets of the press release out. You can post it today, next week, in a month, in 2 months. So there's no reason why you're just going to post the information from this quarter's press release just one time. So definitely put it out there and share it on your social media channels and use those hashtags so that your news can be found easier. And we mentioned earlier, add that press release to your own website. And here's a trick for that. Don't just copy and paste the whole press release in. Do a teaser of your press release. If it's been picked up, you're just going to write a teaser, and then you're going to include a link to where that press release shows. So let's say the Denver Post carried a story about you. So you're going to write a teaser, but you're going to link it to the Denver Post. Because now you've created one of those outbound links on your website, which are also very valuable. they also show relevancy. So if you've gotten picked up, you definitely want to include the link. If you haven't had it picked up, you're going to post it directly to your website. And then the last piece is to use online press release distribution sites. I'm sure you've seen ads for these. I see ads for them all the time. One of the biggest ones is PR Web. PR Web charges a minimum of $99, let's say $100, to have you load your press release. There are no promises as to whether you're going to get any coverage from it or not. So I wrote a blog, which I believe Judith is going to share with you, that has 22 links to press release distribution sites. Some of them are free, some of them you pay for, and many of them have several levels. So maybe $100, a $250 level, a $500 level. But this is how you actually get your news to show up online. So when you sign into MSN in the morning or Yahoo or whatever email program you're using, and you see news pop up on there, most of the time the reason that news is showing there is because they got it from an online distribution site. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where else are they going to get this from? They've got to get it from somewhere, and it probably came from that site you uploaded it to.
All right. So, and let me do an ad here really quick. If you have not gone into Google Words, and they're being searchable, on the Google or alerts here, that you make sure you do a quote with your name quote on it, and maybe the name of your book. The name of your quote, name of your book there, because if something does get picked up, you will get notified. And that's always a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And these distribution sites, they work a little differently because you're loading all the information. One thing I have found is if you write, let's get back to your book. If you write a press release just about your book and you upload it to one of these sites, you might get denied because many of them don't want your press release to be 100% promotional. This is the important part, again, where we're tying it back into what's fresh, relevant, and current, what matters today. What is today's current climate in the media? So I've had them rejected before. If a client wrote it and I uploaded it for them, they're like, no, we're not going to take this. We're not here to just sell what you're selling. We want to share information about this. So you have to be careful. You probably have to tweak your press release when you load it to one of these sites. Would you agree with that, Judith?
Oh, yeah. They all have their guidelines. Like it could be the PR.com. It could be PRlog.com, which are freebies. But they all have their guidelines, and they're picky. You have to follow them. So you're gonna move some stuff around a little bit. Jules, before I forget, that you have, I'm gonna repeat your blog that you have with these distribution sites, but you also have it on your own website. So where
right.
would people find it on their website? So it's uswords.us/what? News. Okay.
It's on my news tab, and it's the very first blog on the news tab. And all 22 of these sites are listed there. You can click on any of the links in the blog. I just clicked on PR log from my blog, and the first thing I see in bright blue letters is submit press release here. This is a free press release, free distribution to search engines. So you just have to click away and figure out which one do you want to use. I usually have some free ones I use, and then I have a few paid ones that I use. And generally, I get results from these.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I also, we use both the free and I have a paid one I use too that pushes it out in a release format. So, I mean, I even, this is really crazy, but my paid one even goes in and monitors my blogs, and it will pick up my blogs and push them out. So I just let it go.
Oh, that's nice. And see, this is where, as I'm looking at PR Log, I know that they also have a word limit, right? So maybe my press release was 2 pages, but they're not going to accept the whole thing. So this is where you have to start cutting and pasting to make your news fit the parameters that these free and paid sites give you. So, like I said, it takes a little bit of tweaking to get accepted.
Oh, I am so glad you said 2 pages, because you and I were talking about often an author book-related press release is 2 pages versus a business might be 1 page. Could you kiss on that a little bit?
Yes, an author's press release, whenever I submit them, they are, I have to say always, they're always 2 pages. The first page is the template. It's got all of the information. For any time I write a press release, no matter what your company is, what your product or service is, I'm going to struggle to get it to 1 page. Everything right there, tight, nice and concise. But for an author, page 2 is going to be more like your sales sheet. This might have the cover of your book, the back cover of your book. It'll have the pricing info, when it was published, your ISBN number. Is it available to Barnes & Noble, Amazon? Is it a direct order? And then that second page generally includes several endorsements. So the people with a name that have written something about your book, you're going to include that on page 2. So instead of just doing 1 endorsement on the first page, you might have 3 or 4 on the second page. Names, people, recognizable names, maybe somebody else who wrote a book who's now endorsing your book. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to go on page 2.
So what if they don't have a bunch of endorsements with recognized names? Would it be safe to, but let's say there's a bunch of reviews up on Amazon or Goodreads. Could you pull something from there?
Yes. Anybody who has written, if it's on Google, Goodreads, Amazon, wherever those reviews show, absolutely you can include those. I indent them and I have them in italics usually.
Yeah. Okay. I go along with that totally. All right. Jules, we have, first, I'm just going to say again, everyone, go to 33words, that's plural.us, and just click on her news tab. And those 20 plus sites that you could use for your distribution are all there. They're all there. So, and then, and sign up for her newsletter. Great information. I'm just going to tell you to do that right now. All right. So we have about 90 seconds left. What's your hot closing tip?
Do it. You just listen to this broadcast. You just listened to this broadcast for 45 minutes. Now go write that press release. There are templates online to follow for writing your press release. They do need to follow a specific format with all of your media contact information there, your headlines that pop, the date line that appears. So if you are unsure how to write a press release, you can definitely Google the templates that you want to follow for writing one. I also have a blog on my website about how to write one, and I have some samples in there for how to write a press release, a media advisory, and also a public service announcement. So you definitely have to get in touch with the media.
All right. Well, Jules Marie, thank you so much for being with us again and sharing your wisdom for authors and their success.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. So everyone, we'll be back with you next week. It's your guide to book publishing, and here is to your authoring success.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. Each